When life gets unpredictable, preparation matters. In medicine, it's all about staying alert, ready for whatever comes through the door. On the road, it's no different. That's why Volvo designs vehicles to help anticipate risk, reduce harm, and protect lives. The Volvo XC90's advanced safety systems inspire confident decisions wherever the road takes you. The Volvo XC90, for life. Proud sponsor of the Pit Podcast. Learn more at volvocars.ca/safety.
Howie Mandel is back with a brand new comedy album. It's called Howie Mandel Does a Show, and it marks his first comedy album in nearly 40 years. Returning to his roots in Toronto, Howie dives into hilarious stories about his phobias, family, and unforgettable childhood moments. Howie Mandel is on the line. Howie, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's
a pleasure.
It's a real pleasure here. I can't wait to talk about the album, but I'd be remiss if I didn't point out the last time we spoke, I worked on morning show TV, and you were a part owner of Just for Laughs. Just off the top here, I know
Right.
Just for Laughs has been in the news so much. You were a part owner. Can you just tell us from your perspective how that played out and what happened with Just for Laughs?
Yes, from my perspective, to be honest with you, I don't know. I don't know what happened. But I hope that Just for Laughs will find some semblance of continuing and burgeoning and promoting Canada and comedy in the future.
Yeah.
But I don't know anything really about it. I was involved for a moment, and I have nothing to do with it now. But I want to do comedy in Canada, and that's why I did this album, and that's why I recorded it in Canada, and that's why it's comedy. And I haven't done it in 40 years, so I'm a one-man festival right now.
So what did it take, Howie, to get back to do this after 40 years, right? It certainly seems...
Well, I've been doing comedy. I haven't left comedy. It's funny. My career has always been kind of fractured in the sense that, if you right from the beginning, first people knew I was a stand-up. Then when I did St. Elsewhere, people thought I was an actor and would bet that the guy on St. Elsewhere is not the same guy that was doing stand-up and putting the glove on his head. And then when I did, Saturday Morning in Bobby's World, people knew me from that but didn't know me from comedy or acting. And then when I became a game show host, they said, I used to love when you did stand-up. I never stopped doing stand-up. If you go to howiemandel.com, I'm always doing stand-up. I stopped recording specials just because I like live. I loved live, but now people, have ways to kind of get and consume their comedy, and recording an album and doing it in Canada is just an opportunity for people while you're driving, on iTunes, on Spotify, all major platforms. You can go and listen to me. And I just wanted to be on a platform. It's 40 years ago, a comedy album was big, and, I just haven't recorded my stand-up or recorded it for audio or video in years, and I said, hey, the time is now.
So how did you choose the bits, right? Like you said, you never stopped doing stand-up, so how did you decide over the years and years and years what's going to go on the album?
I didn't decide what's going to go on the album as much as I decided to record what I do live. So in any given night, it's somewhat different, and because a lot of it is improvisational and in the moment and what's happening in my life. So all I knew is I want to stand in front of an audience in Canada, and somebody should press record. So I'm not that much of a planner and that's my whole career. I got up on a dare at Yuck Yucks, and I would never dreamed that almost 50 years later I would still be talking about what I did that night and continue to do what I did that night. So it's just fun to just get up and perform live, and regardless of what you know me from, and whether that's Canada or America's Got Talent or Deal or No Deal or acting, my favorite, most comfortable place to be is stand-up. So I'm very proud that I continue to do it, that people still buy tickets, that people are interested, and hopefully people will want to listen to what I do.
With comedian Howie Mandel. Now, Howie, you could have picked any place to do this. Aside from our generous government subsidies, why'd you say, let's go back home to Toronto?
For exactly that statement, I'm back home. That's where I started. That's where I'm comfortable. That's where I am. That's where a great audience is. And if you, when people ask me about my career, I always say everything I was ever punished for, expelled for, gotten in trouble for is what I get paid for. And that's where I got expelled. That's where I got in trouble, and that's where I got paid. I'm back at my roots, and that's why I wouldn't think of any other place to record it.
You're doing so many different projects on so many various platforms. I'm sure there are listeners that discovered you later on Netflix, let's say, than earlier in your career. How does that change things for you? The fact that so many people have been able to discover you through so many different ways.
Well, I think we live in a whole new world now where everything is kind of siloed in the sense that, you can have somebody playing the Forum in Montreal, and there was a time in the 70s when I started out with, even if you weren't a fan of that person or that act, you knew what it was if they're playing the Forum. Today, you could have somebody sell out 5 nights and you've never heard of them. And that's where people kind of consume their whatever it is, their comedy, their music, their entertainment from various different ways. So I like being on various platforms. I like being on TikTok. I like being on television. I like being on YouTube. I like doing a podcast. I like doing all these different things, and that's why I decided to record now my comedy, because it's amazing that there's so many people that don't even know that I do stand-up comedy, and my stand-up comedy is very different than anything you see on America's Got Talent or Canada's Got Talent. So now you have, there are people that are going to stream, download, buy, and listen to an album of me doing things they probably didn't even know I do.
Has anything changed about the job of stand-up? The audiences have changed. People talk, things are changing in the clubs and that kind of stuff. Has anything changed?
I think our culture and world is constantly changing. As we survive in this world, a lot of people get older and say, that's not music. When I was a kid, this is music. This is good music. Just like music is very different, so is comedy in the sense of what your point of reference is and what is acceptable. A couple of years ago, I think, as things got very woke, you had the ability to be canceled. I think that pendulum is swinging back, and people are kind of coming back to anything goes. That's what I love about comedy. Comedy is where you find that line and you could step over it, and sometimes it's funny because it's wrong. It's funny because it's, inappropriate. It's funny because it's too soon. And I don't think that there is any place for censorship in comedy. You tackle so many
different things in your special. I want to just tackle one of them with you, and dealing with phobias, right? You've been very public at times about dealing that. Tell me about the comedy side of things and what listeners should expect to hear on your special.
Well, my biggest, not mentor, but who I really looked up to and learned from, and I don't think you'll see any similarity in the two of us, was Richard Pryor. And when I got to watch Richard Pryor, when I moved down to L.A. in the late 70s, I went every night to the Comedy Store and watched Richard Pryor on stage each and every night, cobbled together, which became one of the most seminal comedy concerts in history. And I think people like Chappelle and anybody you know and love today will tell you that he really influenced them. And it was the first time where it doesn't sound like much now, because, what was shocking then is not shocking now. But for him to talk about his addictions, and he was on stage, I don't know if anybody remembers, but he almost died freebasing crack cocaine, and he was burned. And when he got out of the hospital is when he started to cobble together this special. And he was on stage. I watched him with bandages and things like that. And he was talking about addiction, and if you know anything about him, he talked about his relationships and growing up, and he was raised in a brothel by his grandmother. And up until then, my reference to comedy, when you look at people like Rodney Dangerfield and George Carlin, they had great acts, but they were acts, and they were jokes, and they were bits, and they were characters. And this is the first time I noticed somebody kind of speaking their truth and putting it in a funny way. And, you know, I was very kind of protective of my mental health, and I didn't go and seek help until I was in my 40s, but it's very much part of my life. And, you know, if you can't, there's a thin line between comedy and tragedy, you know, and the things that I have to deal with are the things that I need to talk about. So if anybody finds any solace and humor in my struggles, you know, and that's where comedy comes out of. It comes out of struggles. You know, when you laugh at a clown falling down at the circus, you're laughing at the misfortune of somebody you don't know. When you tell a joke about two guys walking into a bar, it's not a joke unless something horrendous happens to one of them. So when you have these real life issues, you need to talk about them. So I talk about everything that I kind of talk about are not jokes, they're real. And they're hopefully relatable, and hopefully you can laugh at it, because I find that if I don't laugh, I'll probably cry.
The new special right there, it's called Howie Mandel Does a Show. Howie, thank you so much for taking the time for our listeners this morning.
My pleasure, buddy.
That's comedian
Be
Howie.
healthy.
Yeah, you too, Howie. Thanks so much. That's comedian Howie Mandel.